Well, greetings and salutations, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026 and the very first installment of the John Campea Show here in 2026. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and this is the show about talking about the things that we love, the things that make us happy, the things that bring us joy. That is what we are here to discuss, movies and movie news, TV and streaming and all that good stuff. And I'm flying solo today. You know what? We weren't even going to do a show today. It is New Year's Day. I figured, I wanted to give everybody the day off. And I figured everybody would be sleeping in till dinner time today. But, with Stranger Things coming out last night, I thought maybe it'd be a good idea to do a show anyway. So today's show is going to be a lot more casual, laid back than a normal, typical John Campea show. Because again, it's just me, and we're probably going to do about an hour here today. But here's how today's show is going to go. We got a couple of topics lined up for you guys that we're going to discuss. And then in the second part of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions, kicking off the new year right. If you guys have a thought, theory, subject, opinion, question that you'd like me to address, as long as I deem it appropriate to be addressed on the show, go ahead and fire it on into our super chats. You can use super chats if you're watching our show live right now, and you just go down to the live chat and send in a super chat. And as long as it's appropriate to be addressed on the show, I'll address it here on the show. Had a great night last night with Anne and some friends of ours. Went out to dinner. We had a really, really good time. This morning's been great too. We had the family come over. It's 12:30 in the afternoon here in Los Angeles. The family came over. They're all out there right now as I'm in here doing the show. I made breakfast for everybody, me and Anne, and we're going to have a great day today. And we're going to start off a great day by talking about some pretty cool stuff. So let's get things started here, shall we? And we're going to start off with this. One of the big questions that I would get a lot of heading into December was just how big did I think Zootopia 2 would be? And my answer was always really big. I mean, it's going to just look at the results of Zootopia 1. It's going to be big. It's going to be a hit. But I questioned whether it would cross the $1 billion mark because, again, we have fewer people going to the movies today. The systems and the trends are just a little bit different today. So I thought it was going to be a big hit, but I didn't think it was going to necessarily cross the $1 billion mark. Well, it did, and it did rather quickly. And it hasn't really stopped since. Because now, according to a report in Deadline, Zootopia 2 has now just passed Frozen 2 to become the highest grossing Walt Disney animated film of all time. Think about that for a second. Think about the history of Disney animation. Frozen 2 has now become the highest grossing Walt Disney animation title of all time. Let's take a look at it. If we go over and take a look at this, if we want to look at the chart of the all-time Disney animation box office, down in number 5 spot now is the original Zootopia from back in 2016. That barely got over the $1 billion mark, but it did. It made $1.02 billion. At number 4 is Moana 2. That just came out at the end of 2024, about a year ago. It made $1.06 billion. The original Frozen made $1.29 billion. Frozen 2 from 2019 made $1.45 billion. And now up there, King of the Hill, Zootopia 2 makes $1.46 billion. And contrary to my belief and predictions, this movie very well could end up being the number 1 box office film of the year, ahead of what a lot of us picked, me included, Avatar 2. Now, Avatar is closing in on the $1 billion mark. It could still have a long way to go. It may still very well end up being the biggest film of the year, but this thing has come in at this. And again, I want to highlight why this is so impressive. Obviously making $1.46 billion, and by the way, it hasn't stopped yet. It's still going. It's still in theaters. Still making money. Obviously at a slower rate now, but it's still making money. Any movie making that much money is impressive. Becoming the highest grossing Disney animated film of all time is impressive. But I want to point something else out. The impressiveness is only intensified when you think about those things I pointed out a little bit earlier before. That This thing has set that record in a time when moviegoing is not as populated as it was just a few years ago in early 2020, when the first Zootopia came out. There are, according to all the statistics, fewer people today going to movie theaters, about 15% less people going to movie theaters today than there were back in 2020 before the pandemic hit. And so for this movie to come out with this massive obstacle in front of it, with the fact that there's fewer people going, and yet still make $1.46 billion, still become the highest grossing Disney animated picture of all time, is wildly impressive. Now, there are two elephants in the room that we have to address. Elephant in the room number one. Well, wait a minute, John, you might say, and rightfully so. Didn't Inside Out 2 make more money than Zootopia? And you would be right. I think it made around 1.5, low 1.6s, something like that. But here's the thing. Inside Out 2 is not a Disney animated film. It is a Pixar film. And by the way, Zootopia 2 is still very much closing in on that. The other giant elephant in the room, you would be forgiven for pointing out, saying, wait a minute, John. How can we say that Zootopia 2 is the highest grossing Disney animation film of all time at $1.6 billion when we damn well know that the 2019 Lion King is indeed an animated film and it made more than that? Well, that's when it gets a little bit tricky. That's when it gets into some technical weeds, because technically speaking, while Disney does rightfully not qualify the 2019 Lion King as a live action film, because it's not, they do qualify the 2019 Lion King as a, and I want to read this to make sure I get the wording right. Disney qualifies that Lion King movie as a photorealistic remake produced by Walt Disney Pictures. It is not a Walt Disney Animation Studios film. It is a photorealistic remake produced by Walt Disney Pictures. And now we're just getting into semantics, but whatever, we'll go with their semantics for now. Still, the bottom line is, and you know what, by the way, Zootopia is probably going to cross that number anyway. So it's probably going to cross Inside Out 2. It's probably going to cross that Lion King movie. So it's all going to be much ado about nothing. But technically speaking, that Lion King is not a Walt Disney Animation Studios film. It is a photorealistic remake produced by Walt Disney. It's an animated film, guys. I don't know why we're splitting hairs. But regardless, is what it is. Guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Listen, this thing exceeded my expectations. Like, I knew it was going to be big. I knew it was going to be successful. But I had my doubts that it would cross $1 billion, and I certainly didn't see it closing in on 1.5. And yet here we are, despite the fact that the current trends say it should be very hard to do that, and yet it did it. What do you guys think about that? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's do this, shall we? I thought, since it's just you and me today, that we would kick things off, this new year off, by starting things off with a little game of overreaction. So how overreaction works is really simple. A little bit earlier today, I jumped on our YouTube channel and I asked you guys if you had any hot takes for us. And if you had any hot takes, to submit them in. I would pick out a few, and then I'm going to tell you guys if those hot takes are overreactions or not. So let's get to it here, shall we? And our first overreaction today gets sent in to us by Sir Malston. And Sir Malston writes in, John Favreau's Star Wars, which is, of course, the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, will be the surprise hit of 2026. John Favreau's Star Wars will be the surprise hit of 2026. All right. I'm going to call that, I'm going to call it not an overreaction. Now, you may be saying, but John, I've watched your show for a while. You don't think that Mandalorian movie is going to necessarily do all that great. True. But the key word here is surprise hit. Surprise. Surprise. Surprise hit. Because you're saying if it does this as a surprise hit, I will say it's not necessarily an overreaction. Then again, we're going to get into issues of definitions. What would be considered a hit? What would be considered a surprise? Look, I think the ceiling, I'll be honest, I think the ceiling for Mandalorian is probably about $500 million. I think that's the ceiling for it. But if Mandalorian and Grogu comes out and makes like 600 million, 650 million, despite what other people might want to tell you, the reality is it's a hit, man, if it does that. And it would be a surprise. Again, Mandalorian and Grogu is not going to be $1 billion film. I still think 500 million is probably the ceiling for it, but it could be the surprise hit. So I'm going to say this one isn't, your hot take is not an overreaction. All right. Let's get on to the next one here, shall we? And our next one gets submitted to us by Real Life Ent, who writes, The Odyssey and Project Hail Mary will be the two frontrunners for Best Picture in the 2027 Oscars. I'm going to call that an overreaction for two huge, even any one of these two reasons by themselves would be enough. By the way, I'm sorry. I just saw one of the dumbest things put into the live chat. I got to see if I can find it. Yeah, there it is. I got to call this one out. Jazz says Pedro Pascal is washed. Boy, that's not an that's one of the dumbest takes I've seen in a while. Anyway, that aside. All right. So the Odyssey and Project Hail Mary will be the two frontrunners for Best Picture and Oscars for 2027. Again, I have two reasons why that's an overreaction. And each reason by itself would be enough to call it an overreaction. And there's two. Okay. So reason number one, this is an overreaction, is because we haven't seen the Odyssey and we haven't seen Project Hail Mary. For all we know, as unlikely as it is, the Odyssey could end up being Christopher Nolan's worst film. And by the way, I'll take Christopher Nolan's worst film over a lot of other directors' best films. But still, for all we know, the Odyssey could end up being his worst film. I don't think that's likely, but it could. We haven't seen it. Project Hail Mary, which is right up there amongst my most anticipated films of the year. Like, Project Hail Mary is right in that conversation with me with Dune 3 and Doomsday and Odyssey and stuff like that. It's right up there. But this is a movie, if you've read the book, that could go very badly trying to translate it into a film. Now, granted, I mean, it is Lord and Miller, so that's working in its favor. The author of Project Hail Mary was also, I should say, the author of The Martian, which they translated into the movie with Matt Damon, which was freaking awesome. So that's going for it too. But the reality is it could stink. Could be terrible. So reason number one, I think it's an overreaction, is because we can't say either of these are necessarily going to be a front runner because we haven't even seen them yet. But here's the second reason why I think this is an overreaction. The second reason is we haven't seen all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other films that are coming out. Listen, even if the Odyssey and Project Hail Mary is really good, the reality is there's a chance that there could be 10 other films that are all better that year. I mean, every year when we head into like a brand new year and we start thinking about the Oscars, there's always films that we never saw coming that end up kind of streaking right up to the top of the, potential Best Picture nomination stuff. So again, the two reasons I'm going to call it an overreaction. Number one, we haven't even seen the Odyssey or Project Hail Mary yet. And reason number two is, for all we know, there could be a lot of other films that are even better than those. So I'm going to say that those two being the front runners is an overreaction. All right. Let's move on to the next one here. Our next one comes to us from Cartoon Power, who writes, He-Man will make more money than Dune 3 at the box office. He-Man will make more money than Dune 3 at the box office. You know, my first initial instinct is to call that an overreaction. But you know what? I'm going to say it's not an overreaction. Now, that's not to say that I'm predicting that He-Man will in fact make more money than Dune 3, but to say that it will, I don't think is a huge stretch. I don't think it's an overreaction. And here's why. I have always said that if you understand Dune, you know, I go all the way back to the first Dune movie. I said this about the first Dune movie. I said it about the second Dune movie. I'll say it about the third. Dune movies are not for everyone, right? They're not for everyone. They are very specific. They're tailored. Like they're for people who really like deep lore mythology mixed with their sci-fi. And that's a mixture that's not necessarily hits all the buttons for everybody. And I've always said, don't expect Dune to be like these big multi-billion-dollar projects. And sure enough, they haven't been. So I think there's a more of a theoretical ceiling on Dune. Now, that being said, Masters of the Universe is going to be bigger than most people think. It's going to be bigger than most people think. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be an $800 million movie. Don't get me wrong. But I remember when they showed us the Masters of the Universe He-Man presentation at CinemaCon back in April, we were shocked. Everybody in that place was shocked. We couldn't believe how actually good it looked. Now, that doesn't mean the movie will actually turn out good, but I mean, it looked a lot better than we thought it would, right? You compound that with the fact that there have been a number of reports coming out, and you take these with a grain of salt, but there have been a number of reports coming out that's like, this thing's actually really good. You pepper that in with some nostalgia and an underlying hunger that there has been amongst a certain percentage of people to see a really good revisiting of He-Man, which we haven't had. And I still think the ceiling for this is about 500 million. But it could, if it's as good as we're thinking it might be, and no one's saying it's going to be a Best Picture contender, but if it's as good as it's sounding it could be, there is definitely a reality in which Masters of the Universe, if it catches on well and it hooks people, could actually outdraw Dune 3, even if Dune 3 is really good. And you guys know I've got some concerns about Dune 3 because I don't think Dune Messiah is a very good book. Sorry, there's about 5,000 Dune books and each of them get progressively worse. Dune is the best of all the Dune books, and then it just goes downhill from there, in my opinion, at any rate. So I've got some real concerns about the source material going into Dune 3. But we'll see. Look, if I had to put $5 on it, my wager would be that Dune will make more money. But I wouldn't bet $100 on it. And that's why I'm going to say that your take here that He-Man will make more than Dune 3 at the box office, while I don't necessarily agree, I can't call that an overreaction right now. So I'm going to say not an overreaction. All right. Let's move on to the next one here, shall we? And our next one gets sent into us by Brendan Gaggan, who writes, Marvel made X-Men 97 to increase excitement regarding the X-Men in anticipation of them being a big part of the MCU. Marvel made X-Men 97, for those of you who don't know, that's an animated series that they made last year, to increase excitement regarding the X-Men in anticipation of them being a big part of the MCU. I am uncategorically and easily going to call that a massive overreaction. And the reason that is a massive overreaction is because for that statement, and by the way, you're looking at somebody who was a big fan of X-Men 97. That was one of those things where I stayed up late every night a new episode was supposed to drop, and I watched it late every single time. I really enjoyed X-Men 97. So you're talking to a fan. But it is a massive overreaction to say that they did this to set up Avengers. You know why? Here's why. It assumes that the same amount of people that watch Game of Thrones watched X-Men 97. Guys, in perspective, nobody watched X-Men 97. In perspective, if you compare it to legitimately largely watched shows, very few people watched X-Men 97. If you walk into let's put it this way. If you walk into an average movie theater and you wait for average people to come out of movies and they're going home, whatever, and you polled a lot of people and say, have you ever watched Game of Thrones? A good percentage of people are going to say, yeah, I've watched Game of Thrones. But if you ask average people walking out of an average movie theater, have you ever watched X-Men 97? Vast majority of them have not. The vast majority of them have not. And I contend that if your purpose of making X-Men 97, the reason you made X-Men 97 was specifically for the purpose of increasing excitement going into this movie, when you realize that only about a certain percentage of those, like a small percentage of the average person going to see it, has even seen X-Men 97, then there is no other way than to categorize that as an overreaction. And again, I say this as a fan of X-Men 97. I'm a fan. But no, they didn't make X-Men 97 to increase excitement. Because, by the way, here's the other biggest reason. Here's the biggest reason. When they started the process of putting an X-Men 97 show together, the plan at Marvel was still to do Kang Dynasty. All right? Remember that. When they started the process of making X-Men 97, their purpose was not to increase excitement for Avengers Doomsday because the X-Men are playing the role in that movie that they are. And as somebody who knows everything about Avengers Doomsday, I can tell you they play a very cool role. The reality is when they started making X-Men 97, that movie was still going to be called Avengers Kang Dynasty. So that by itself, that one little fact by itself completely makes the idea that they made that X-Men 97 and one of their big motivations was to increase excitement for Avengers Doomsday. Well, that takes it away because they weren't even going to make Avengers Doomsday when they started making X-Men 97. So anyway, I'm going to call this one an overreaction. But that does not mean that we do not still share love for X-Men 97 and very much looking forward to season 2 when it finally gets here. All right, couple more to go here. Let's go to this one. Chad Sam writes, Doomsday will be the Barbenheimer of 2026. Doomsday will be the Barbenheimer of 2026. All right, in case you're not sure, and you don't know exactly what it is he's talking about, as of right now, Dune 3 and Avengers Doomsday are scheduled to come out on the same day. And I have said for a while that there's no chance that's actually going to happen. One of them will move. One of them will move. No problem. But recently, Warner Brothers has said, no, we're not moving it. We're not moving it. So it looks right now like we're going to get the unthinkable. We're going to get Avengers Doomsday, and Dune 3 releasing on the same day. And that has caused some people in the industry and people online, like the great Boss Logic, to proclaim it as Dune, D-U-N, Doomsday. Of course, mimicking what happened with Barbenheimer a few years ago when Barbie and Oppenheimer both came out on the same day. Now, the reason I'm apprehensive about that is because Barbenheimer, because Barbie, which ended up being the #1 film of the year, and Oppenheimer, which came this close to being $1 billion film, they both were appealing to completely different audiences. They were appealing to completely different audiences. Therefore, they could kind of build, so both studios leaned into the whole Barbenheimer thing. Both of them kind of promoted the idea of Barbenheimer. Go to a movie and have a great time, then go see this other movie too. That's awesome as well. And they really built it up. But my apprehension has been that unlike Barbie and Oppenheimer, which were like two fundamentally diametrically opposed kinds of movies targeting wildly different demographics, a lot of the people going to see Dune 3 are the same people that are going to go see Avengers Doomsday. So I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit nervous. I am absolutely a bit nervous about this. Completely. But as far as the question goes that Doomsday will be the Barbenheimer of 2026, I have my apprehensions. I have my doubts. I have my worries, but I'm going to say your statement is not an overreaction. I still think both of these movies are going to be really good. Will they end up helping each other? Will both studios lean into the Doomsday idea and kind of promote the whole thing like the two studios did for Barbie and Oppenheimer? And does that actually create this wild hype effect and it grows the box office for both? It could. It could. Will more people end up now seeing Doomsday than they would have otherwise? It's possible. Will more people end up seeing Dune 3 now as a result of this? Maybe. So I'm still worried. I'm still apprehensive. Guys, I'm not going to lie. I still have my doubts. But I'm going to say that you saying Doomsday will be the next Barbenheimer of 2026, I'm for now going to call it not an overreaction. I'm going to call it not an overreaction. We'll find out in about a year. All right. Let's move on to the last one here now. And our last submission here for overreaction comes to us from Reese Jones, 1993, who writes, with what could potentially be two of the highest grossing films of the year coming out, Tom Holland's worth as an actor will dramatically increase. With what could potentially be two of the highest grossing films of the year coming out, Tom Holland's worth as an actor will dramatically increase. Okay, so what, of course, he is talking about is that in 2026, we've got Spider-Man, Brand New Day, and we've got Avengers Doomsday. By the way, I'm just going to say this. Don't count on Tom Holland being in Avengers Doomsday. But let's go just with the spirit of the question, okay? Let's say for the sake of argument, Spider-Man Brand New Day and Avengers Doomsday, that this will dramatically increase his worth. His profile, his worth. Because after all, in one movie, we've got Spider-Man. In 1 year, we got Spider-Man Brand New Day, and Tom Holland's also got Spider-Man Doomsday, and woo, his value's going to shoot through the sky. It is a massive overreaction. And you know what? Somebody in the live chat has just brought up a really good point to me, which is that they probably aren't talking about Doomsday. They're probably talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day and, of course, The Odyssey. Okay, that's a really, really good point. They weren't talking about Doomsday. They were talking about The Odyssey. So Spider-Man Brand New Day and The Odyssey. This is why I love doing the show live. This is why I love having our chatters in there to point this stuff out to me when I get it wrong. You know what? You're probably 100% right. I think Reese Jones, you're probably right. They probably meant Spider-Man Brand New Day and Odyssey, not Spider-Man Brand New Day and Doomsday. Okay, so let's go with that. I'm still going to call it an overreaction. And here's why. Let's take a little trip back to 2021. Okay? Let's go back to 2021. Tom Holland had already had Spider-Man Homecoming. He had already had Spider-Man Far From Home. He had already had Avengers Infinity War. He was already in a couple of the other Avengers projects. Endgame had already happened. If Tom Holland's Hollywood value and worth going to dramatically increase as a result of being in a couple of big blockbusters, then that would have been the time that would have happened. He had a couple of Spider-Man movies. He had a couple of Avengers movies. I don't want to go, Mr. Stark was one of the most tear-jerking moments in movies that year as he, poof, got snapped away. If Tom Holland's Hollywood worth was going to dramatically increase as a result of being in a couple of big hits, that would have been the time for that to happen. But you know what came out after Avengers Endgame? There was a little movie he did called Cherry that was produced by the Russo brothers. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw it. You know what else he did? He did a little movie called Chaos Walking with Daisy Ridley. Remember that? This is after Spider-Man Homecoming, after Spider-Man Far From Home, after Avengers Infinity War. It was after all this. And he did this little movie called Chaos Walking, a sci-fi kind of movie with Daisy Ridley. And it had a wide release, opened in almost 2,000 theaters. It wasn't some little 50 movie theater rollout. Had a wide release, 2,000 theaters. You know how much money that movie made? Worldwide, total? I'm remembering somewhere around 28 million bucks. Might be 26, might be 24, might be 29, but I'm thinking it was around 28 million bucks. You know what? Just to be sure, let me go double check this. What was it? 26. It wasn't even 28. Made $28 million. And then he did Uncharted. And, you know, I didn't think Uncharted was all that bad. Ray loved it. Rob really didn't like it. Whatever. It's mixed bag, mixed results. But Uncharted, one of the most hotly anticipated like video game adaptations people had waited years to see, and it made about 400 million. That's not bad. That's not bad. 400 million isn't terrible. But if Tom Holland's worth in Hollywood was to dramatically increase, it would have been after Avengers Infinity War. And what do we get? We got Cherry that nobody saw. We got Chaos Walking. Nobody went to go see it. We got Uncharted, which didn't do bad, but it's not like Tom Holland's dramatically increased worth drove a whole bunch of box office to it either. So I'm not sure that 2026 being in a big Christopher Nolan blockbuster like The Odyssey and being in another big Marvel blockbuster like Spider-Man No Way Home, or Spider-Man Brand New Day, I should say, I'm not sure that if it didn't dramatically increase his worth after Infinity War, I'm not sure how we would justify saying it's going to dramatically increase his worth after this year. Now, am I saying that I don't think Tom Holland has a future in Hollywood? Absolutely not. I'm a fan of this dude. I think he is a very good actor. I think his acting just gets better and better. I think he is one of the most physically dynamic actors we have. This dude can do action. He can dance. He can do everything, right? Anything you want him to do physically, he can probably do. And he's a really good actor. And he's marrying Zendaya, so he's winning at life. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan of Tom Holland. But what I think it's going to take for Tom Holland's worth to, as you said in your question here, quote unquote, dramatically increase his worth, is I think he needs to walk into a movie that is not a massive Christopher Nolan blockbuster, not another massive Marvel blockbuster, but I think he needs to do something like Singing in the Rain. I think he needs to do something like another film, say like Cherry or like Chaos Walking, that actually ends up being great and it just attracts people and people go to see it and becomes a minor hit in its own right. I think that's the next step for Tom Holland's evolution in dramatically increasing his worth. Yes, we already know you can put him in a big blockbuster and he'll do well. But for him to take the next step, I think he's got to be able to be in movies like Cherry and movies like Chaos Walking and others singing in the rain and others like that. He's got to be able to do those and show that he can carry those movies further than they would have gone without him. And if he can do that, then I think he's taking a dramatic big step. But for now, dude, I got to say, him taking a dramatic increase in his worth just because of the couple of films he's got coming in 2026, I'm going to call that an overreaction. All right, guys, here we are for you now. What did you think? What would you say out of all those hot takes sent into us by our viewers were overreactions? Which ones were not overreactions? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's do one more thing here, shall we? And that is this. Well, last night, Stranger Things Season 5 had its finale. Not just Season 5 had its finale. Stranger Things, the entire series, had its wrap-up finale. And, I went into it a little skeptical. Like, look, I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks. I think Season 5's been pretty damn solid. I don't think it's been the best season of the show. I'm not the world's biggest Stranger Things fan to begin with, but I think the season's been pretty damn solid, to be honest with you. And I make no apologies for that. If you don't agree, fine. If you have a problem that I liked it, go piss off and cry in a corner. I don't give a shit about you. So here's the thing. I'm a little salty because of how much crap people are. You liked it? Well, then you're this, and this. Oh my God, you're such a loser. Anyway, I liked it. If you didn't, that's totally cool. But if you got a problem that I did, go jerk off into a soda can. Anyway, so I think the season's been pretty solid. I've enjoyed it. I've liked it. Not perfect. Some things I would do better, but overall, I thought it was pretty good. But I've gone into the finale a little dubious because, number one, it's very hard to nail the landing of a finale because even many, I would say the vast majority of even the best shows have shaky landings. It's not the only one by a mile, but the one I like to use as an example is one of the greatest television sitcoms of all time, Seinfeld. Had also maybe one of the worst season or series finales of all time. It is hard. It's difficult to nail a landing. So, and you're talking about 10 years of Stranger Things, 5 seasons, huge culture phenomenon. It was going to be extremely difficult to wrap it up and end it in a way that satisfied the majority of people. It was going to be extremely a tall order. So, I watched it. Here are my thoughts. Take them as you will. And by the way, I am going to go a little bit into spoilery detail here. I mean, look, nobody doubted that at the end of the day, the town defeats Vecna. I don't think anybody doubted that was going to happen. I mean, yes. But so I'm going to go into a little bit of spoilery detail here. I'm not going to spend too long on it, I should say. But I do want to give you that heads up, give you that warning. My enjoyment of the finale breaks into 3 parts. There was the first half of the finale. There was the second half of the finale. And sprinkled within there, like there's the first 47%, there's the second 47%, and then there's the last 6% of the movie, all right? I'm going to break those into 3 things. First 47%, second 47%, then the last 6%. The first 47%, roughly the first hour, I thought was pretty good. Perfect? No. But I enjoyed it. I was watching it, like the way everything started to funnel down to its climax and then the big kind of final confrontation with Vecna. I love the fact that Elle couldn't take on Vecna alone. It had to be a combination, a huge effort of Elle with all the other people attacking the Mind Flayer to weaken Vecna, and then Will stepping in as well, having to intervene. It took this Herculean, huge coordinated effort to finally take down Vecna. And the way they did it, great. And listen, I thought at first it was going to be a little bit cheesy, but the way they finished the whole thing off with Vecna still breathing and it being Will's mom that comes in with the axe. I think there was something really appropriate about it being Will's mom, because you can make an argument there isn't anybody who's been caused as much loss and pain and fear and whatever throughout the series as maybe Will's mom. So for her to be the one to take the axe and finally take his head off, I thought that was appropriate. Here's something a lot of people are misunderstanding. Like the Mr. Spawntrap says, yep, no demos, no demo dogs. The Mind Flayer is hurt by bullets and fire. You missed the point. The Mind Flayer and Vecna they set up in the story were connected. When El started hurting Vecna, it weakened the Mind Flayer. I think if everything else being equal, everybody just shooting bullets at the Mind Flayer, I don't think really does much other than annoy it and irritate it. But because of that whole combined thing, anyway, so there's that. So all that stuff, the build-up, getting into the abyss, I think that's what they're calling it, right? There's the regular world, there's the upside down, and I think they're calling the other place the abyss. Anyway, they get up there, do that thing, loved it. Few things I could have done without. Like, I didn't need that whole conversation between Steve and whatever Will's older brother's name is. When it's like, I still don't like you, but doesn't mean I want you dead. That was a good line, actually. I'll give it credit. That was a good line. I don't like you. I still don't like you, but that doesn't mean I want you dead. And I like that line. That was a good line. But I think I could have done without that whole conversation, to be honest with you. So that was fine. Few little things like that. But for the most part, that first half of the finale, I thought was pretty good. I thought they did a good job. Then there's the most of the second half. And frankly, I thought most of the second half was a complete waste. The whole Dustin valedictorian giving his speech thing, I just thought was cheap. The whole thing about the older kids, Nancy and Steve and, the rest of them sitting on the rooftop having a beer, talking about the future, I thought that was weak. I thought it was thin. I thought it was weak. Almost everything else, the whole marriage proposal thing, I think I just assumed that, considering the relationship between Hop and Will's mom, that they were going to get married, and it's 18 months later, and we had to have this whole scene where he pops a marriage proposal. At best, I thought unnecessary. And it just, instead of ending on a high note, it felt like you had this big high note with the climax and the final battle with Vecna. And then we had to spend a half hour to an hour of this slow, pointless, doesn't give us any new insight into the characters, really, doesn't give us any new insight into the show as a whole that we just experienced 10 years with. And it just kind of felt like we had to go through this slog for like what felt like 40 plus minutes. I'm not saying it was, I didn't add it up, but it just felt like this giant slog for the next 45 minutes or so. That was completely unnecessary. It didn't do anything to give us insight or fresh revelation or anything like that. That were like, because you go back to something like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, right? And, there's always this constant, the problem with Return of the King is that it has 17 different endings. Yeah, but 17 different, like all the endings of Lord of the Rings, Return of the Kings was expressive. It was all didactic. It all showed us something and taught us something and all that kind of stuff. And like one of the greatest moments in cinematic history was when the climax of the entire adventure of Lord of the Rings is all of the world of men and elves and dwarves up by the tree of the king, when Isildur's heir is now made king again. And he comes out and he sees these three hobbits who start to bow. I might cry. I might fucking cry just thinking about this moment in this movie. And the hobbits start to bow to Aragorn, and he says, My friends, you bow to no one. And the culmination, I would say, I would propose to you, is not that they defeated the Eye of Sauron. That's not the climax. Was these three little hobbits standing there, and all of Gondor and all of Middle Earth taking a knee and bowing to them as they're standing there like that. And that's what each ending did, even when they were all going to the final ships, leaving the shores, right? And they're bringing Frodo and Bilbo and all that kind of stuff. It was the true ending of their story. None of that was present in what was the second half of the Stranger Things finale. None of that was part of the second half. It was just meandering and clogging through it and just, come on. All right. Now remember, I said I break it down into three. The first part, the second part, and then that kind of last 6-7%. After going through all this useless amount of stuff in the finale, then we get Will saying, or Mikey saying, nah, let's not all go as graduating high school guys who have just been invited to a party by these hot girls. That's what you're thinking if you're just a graduating high school guy. Now, let's not go and get our buddy Dustin laid. I got a better idea. Really? What's your better idea? Vegas? Nah. Let's go play Dungeons and Dragons. And you know what? God bless him. Mike was 100% right. I don't care. Mike was right. It was the better idea. Go and play a good game of D&D, man. Go and do it. That's your thing. And that's what you do. And Mike was right. I stand by that. Anyway, so Mike, it starts with the final part of the finale. Starts with Mike saying, I got a better idea. And they bring the show full circle. Stranger Things started with a little group of friends playing a game of D&D. And it ends with that group of friends having gone through their own campaign, having gone through their own adventure, ending with those friends plus Max sitting at the table and playing D&D one last time. And I got to tell you, I thought it was wonderful. As useless and as bored and as frankly kind of irritated with that entire second half of the finale, once it got to them just sitting at that table, and Mike as the storyteller starts telling them what happened to each of them as they go on their road. I ain't gonna lie to you guys. That made me feel. It made me feel. I really wish they had, honest to God, I wish they had just skipped right from her chopping off Vecna's head to 18 months later and the five of them downstairs sitting around the table playing D&D. I really wish they had cut out that other 40 minutes because that 40 minutes was just schlock. But that part, when they're just playing the game, friends just playing the game together one more time, friends whose bonds had been forged and deepened through the trials and tribulations in which they faced. Over 10 years of us watching them. And then beautifully shot as one by one, each of them puts their binder and character sheets and adventure notes back up on the shelf, each with their name on it, and putting it on the shelf. And then Mike starts to walk up the stairs as everybody left to go have their lasagna. The screen could have gone black, and I would have thought, chef's kiss, perfect ending. I would have been totally happy with that ending. But they did something a little bit different. What they did, though, instead was Mike starts to go up the stairs, and they did something unexpected. The door at the top of the stairs flies open, and Mike and Nancy's sister, Holly, who I think was kind of a low-key MVP of this season. I know some people were kind of annoyed that, why are you putting so much focus on kind of a new character? Focus more on Mike and Will and Steve and Dustin. I honestly think Holly was kind of a low-key MVP of the season for me. But anyway, so Mike's walking up the stairs, could have ended it right there, and I would have been totally happy. But instead, the door flies open, and Holly and her friends burst through the door and head down the stairs, and they start up their campaign. And I got to tell you, I'm getting emotional. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. Because remember, I said just starting with the group playing and then ending with them playing, that was perfect circle all by itself. But they went one level deeper. Now, Mike, getting ready to enter his college years and stuff like that, he's standing at the top of the stairs now looking down and watching this new generation who have been through the Vecna Wars, who have been through the Upside Down and in the Abyss and in the mind of Henry and all that kind of stuff. And now they're down there and they're start playing their game. I got to tell you guys, as much as I absolutely hated that second half 40 minutes trudge, which I really wish they could have done so much, or better yet, they should have just cut it out entirely. That ending so made up for it for me. As somebody who plays, who has played a lot of D&D in my life. As a matter of fact, just in case you guys didn't see it, let me see if I can pull up this picture here. Yeah, I'll bring this up. As soon as the finale was over, I posted this on my social media. I said, what I'm suddenly in the mood for after watching the Stranger Things finale. And there's like, Ann and I pulled out our books and I'm like, oh my God, I so want to start a campaign now. And now look, I get it. There's a facetiousness to talking about a fifth season, 10-year run finale and focusing so much on just like these 7 minutes that happened at the end. But oh my God, like I said, I really wish, guys, they had just killed Vecna 18 months later and the guys downstairs with Max sitting around the table playing D&D. It just would have made the whole finale not perfect, but a lot better. Would have made it a lot better. But again, if I'm going to crap so much on the stuff that I thought was terrible in it, I have to give my props to it, guys. Again, just them sitting around playing the game. You think about the beginning of the show. You think about, the whole middle of the show. You think about Hellfire Club. You think about all this kind of stuff. And then again, one by one, putting their binders away. Mike walking up the stairs, getting ready to turn out the lights. And then Holly and her friends, the next generation, come downstairs and start playing D&D. And I'm not going to lie, guys, that moment made my heart come alive. It really did. I loved it. So yeah, there's that. So there's my thoughts, guys, on the finale. Did they nail the landing? No, I'm going to say no. But did they totally botch the ending? No, because again, I thought the first part was pretty solid, the whole slog in the middle, but then they just, the last 7, 8, however many minutes it was at the end was a perfect way to end the series. The episode as a whole was not necessarily the perfect way to end the series, but the ending of the episode, the thing that actually ended the series, could not have been better. You could not have done better. I could not have done better. Nobody could. I don't think there's any way to do that last little section to end the show off that could have been any better. And by the way, I hear some people talking about, well, they kind of left it open-ended, and they didn't really. All they really said is that Mike and the party are choosing to believe that she's still out there somewhere. And I like the fact You know what they could have done that would have been really cheesy, guys? Here's something that they could have done that would have been really cheesy. Had, the guys finished their game of D&D, and then Mike just walked upstairs and closed the door and then went to go have dinner. And then the camera pans back down to the table, right? And then all of a sudden, the lights start to flicker. And then the screen goes black and Stranger Things, whatever. That would have been lame. That would have been lame. Right? After them talking about, I believe that she's still out there somewhere. And then they go away. And then the lights start to flicker when nobody's there to see it. Like, ooh, that's Elle. They didn't do that. They just ended it with them. And you know what? If you're those kids, I'll say this. If you're those kids and you've just spent however many years seeing all the things that they have gone through. You've been to parallel dimensions and seen supernatural creatures and fought demos and a mind flare and Vecna and telekinesis and mind invasion. And you've been through all that. Is it really crazy for them to go, we don't know, but I'm going to choose to believe that Elle might be out there somewhere? Is it really that crazy for them to do that, given everything they have seen and experienced? I'd say no, that wasn't a stretch. And the showrunners didn't give us anything to justify it either. Like I said, it's not like then the camera goes back downstairs to the empty room and then the lights start flashing. They didn't do that. They just left it with them going, I choose to believe it. And I'm good with that. Because it leaves it with us too as an audience. I can choose to believe that Elle survived it. You can choose to believe that she didn't. It doesn't really matter at the end, but yeah. So overall, they did not nail the landing, but they didn't botch it either. And they redeemed a lot of the bad stuff at the very end with a absolutely perfect final button. So that's my take at any rate, guys, of the season finale of Stranger Things, the series finale of Stranger Things. And that's kind of my take on it. Question is for you guys. What did you guys think about it? The good, the bad. And if you're going to drop into the comments, guys, put some brain cells together. Don't just say, it was the best. Tell me what you liked about it. Don't just go, it sucked. Well, tell me specifically what you didn't. What I really would love to hear is if you loved it, tell me that you loved it and maybe a couple things you didn't like about it. But if you didn't like it, do the opposite. Say, I didn't like it, but I got to admit this part and this part and this part were pretty decent. So expand a little bit if you're on either side of that aisle. Anyway, whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's now move on this New Year's Day, this kind of special, shorter version of the show, whatever, and take part in the most important part of our show, which is, of course, taking your live comments and questions. Now, just so you know, I have turned off the super chats now because we actually got a surprising number of super chats came in. So I've already turned them off, so you can't send in any more at this point. If you see somebody in the live chat saying, how do I send in a super chat? Just let them know it's closed at this point. Don't worry, they'll be open again tomorrow. But let's get to the questions that have come in. Let me get it loaded up here. Just take me a second. And all right, let's get things rolling. And we're going to start off with Hardick writes, what do you think about Pepper Potts? We haven't seen her since Endgame. Could she return in Doomsday? What do you think, John? Love from India. Well, thank you for writing in from India, man. I love how many people watch the show from India. It's just absolutely amazing. I've always loved the Pepper character. As a matter of fact, I really hate romances in comic book movies. I really don't care about relationships in comic book movies. I mostly care about friendships in comic book movies. There's very, very few couples I really like. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone's Peter and Gwen. I like that one. Druig and Makari in Eternals. I think that's a great one. But probably right up at the top, Deadpool and Vanessa is another one. But right at the top, I've got to say Tony and Pepper. That's just a relationship that always worked for me. and was great. And part of the reason why at the end of Endgame, when Pepper comes in, and I forget her hero name, what is it, Rescue? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think her armor name is Rescue. Again, guys in the live chat, correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I think it was Rescue. Anyway, I got chills when like she shows up and then her and Tony are in the air back to back and kind of spinning around, firing back to back. I thought that was great. So I loved her. Do I think she's coming back in Doomsday? No. Do I think she could come back in Secret Wars? That's a possibility. That's a possibility. All right. Let's go on here. Nerdy Beardman writes, what movie franchise in the last 25 years would make a great series? And vice versa. Like Harry Potter, I think the Game of Thrones universe has movie potential. I agree. These types of questions are hard because these are questions, like I'm just reading this now. These are the types of questions that I'd like to sit down and think about for a while before coming up with something off the top of my head. I still really believe Battlestar Galactica could work great as a movie. Battlestar Galactica could work great as a trilogy. So, yeah. I mean, I would have more answers for you if I had some time to think about it, but I'm going to go with Battlestar Galactica has been the greatest television show of all time. I think it could also work really great if it was rebooted as a movie franchise. I think it could do absolutely wonderful. All right. Let's see here. Next up, we got Lost Anchor Films writes, have you seen Paul Mescal? And yes, the two prominent things he did before Gladiator, After Sun and Normal People, incredible, subtle performances. This is where his hype came from. And I'm going to say, I don't think he was bad in those. It's just that I have never seen in his performances what other people have seen in his performances. I'm not proposing here that he was a bad actor. Not at all. Not at all. But this Academy level that a lot of people think he has, I've just never seen it myself. And then you get to Gladiator 2. And quite frankly, I did not think he was very good in Gladiator 2. And I don't blame him too much because I don't think the material he was given was all that strong either. So I thought he was a little bit miscast for it, whatever. But if there is light with Paul Mescal, I have now seen it in Hamnet. Like Hamnet is that movie for me that has made me go, okay. I'm starting to see what other people are seeing in him here. And that's the one that's done it for me is Hamnet. All right. Thanks a lot for that, Lost Anchor. Ian McAllister writes, Scrubs comes back February 25th. Yes, it does. And Ted Lasso is said to premiere sometime this summer. How excited are you for both? You know what? To be honest, I would have thought I would be more excited about Scrubs than I am. I would have thought I would be more excited about it, but I'm not. You know what I think it is? I think that trailer they put out for the Scrubs reunion was just too much like the original Scrubs. Like I think, I don't know what I was expecting or hoping for, but I would think, you know, it's been like a decade or more. I can't remember. I'm terrible with time. I don't know how long it's been, but don't make it look like they haven't missed a day. Make it look like they've grown, evolved, changed a little bit like years do. And I don't know. Now, look, I'm definitely going to check it out because I love Scrubs, and I'm really glad it's coming back, but I would be lying to you if I said I was feeling really excited for it. I'm not yet. Maybe I will. Ted Lasso, one of the best things on TV, man. Yeah, absolutely super excited about that. Can't wait for that thing to come back. All right. Thanks, Ian. Ian also writes, I read God of War starts filming in March of 2026. I heard it was going to start in the first half of 2026. Anyway, in Vancouver, only 2 months away. Hopefully hear more casting and news soon. Dude, I think a lot of us are just anxiously waiting for word on who is going to play Kratos. I mean, there's a few big ones. Who's going to be the next Bond? Who's going to be Batman? Who's going to play Kratos? I think a lot of us. So if it is true, and if it is going to start shooting as early as in March, we should start hearing who's going to be Kratos, maybe even this month. But we are all very anxiously awaiting to find that out. All right. Let's see. And let me touch on this stuff. Truth Firstly says, I'm annoyed that the God of War is going to be not adapt the Greek stuff first. And you know what? I'm sorry, dude. I got to tell you, they are 100% making the right decision. They are 100% making the right decision to start with this God of War. The new iteration of it, the one prior to Ragnarok. They're absolutely making 100% the right decision. It absolutely plays far more cinematically. I think it's going to be far more appealing to the audience. I think it has far more potential. And yeah, I honestly think they are absolutely making the right decision. Now, there's an argument to be made, but you got to really know his backstory. Listen, I was saying this on the show the other day. Every movie you ever watch, the characters you meet in a movie and a show all have backstory. And if the filmmaker is good, they use their movie to reveal the important parts of that character's backstory as you go. And I think they'll do that here with God of War. But yeah, I think it would have been a tremendous mistake for them to go back to the earlier games and go, those ones don't have the same potential of success with a wider audience as this one does. This one has a much bigger potential for success and to connect with the wider audience. And so I really think they've made the right decision. But the proof is in the pudding, right? We'll find out. Very easily, we might watch it and go, they probably should have gone back earlier. Maybe we will. We'll find out. All right. Next up, Kian writes, hey all, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. Have you seen and or discussed the HBO series Task? Yes to both. I loved it and thought Tom Felfrey was phenomenal. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name. Was phenomenal in every scene he was in. I loved Task. I love Task, man. One of the things I love about it is that there was no black and white. In the entire series, there was simply no black and white. Even the bad guys, like the bad guys in the series, there were shades of sympathy you could feel for them. Like there were shades of it. I just loved how every single character was so drenched with, pardon the pun, but with 50 Shades of Grey, right? And they're going to do a Task season 2. Mark Ruffalo is fantastic. The whole cast was absolutely dynamic. And yes, Mark Ruffalo's captain is the same girl from Goonies. Isn't that weird? His boss, the woman boss, the ratchety, like older one, getting ready to retire, boss. Yeah, that's the girl from Goonies, guys. The girl from Goonies. Anyway, I love Task. I thought it was great, and I'm really excited about them doing season 2. All right, next up. Where are we at? Rhino just sends in a badge to be supportive. Thank you, Rhino. Appreciate that, dude. Earthling Entertainment writes, where is Ray? I missed that, dude. Ray is, I think he's actually in my living room right now. Ray's still with the show. He still does all the post-production work on the show and all that kind of stuff. He just, shows him he's not on camera, but he's still with us. He's just not on camera anymore. All right, next up. Joe Rendazzo sends in a $50 super chat. Thank you, Joe, so much for supporting our channel on that level, man. Appreciate you, dude. And he writes in, Happy New Year, guys. Thanks for all you do. And here's to another great year. My top 10 of the year is number 10, Superman. Number 9, Drop. I love that movie. I really, really did like that movie. It didn't make my list, but I'm glad you have it on yours. Wake Up Dead Man, Fantastic Four, Black Bag, Marty Supreme, Good Fortune. I'm glad you mentioned Good Fortune as well. That's another movie I like, but I didn't have them on my list. Warfare, Sinners, and The Long Walk. Yeah, we just spent all of yesterday's show going over our favorite films of the year, and I love so many of those. And The Long Walk, again, man, that was a movie that just haunted me. Just absolutely haunted me for days, if not a couple of weeks after I watched it. Because I watched it a couple of times, with our movie meetups, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I'm glad it's on your list, Joe. And again, Happy New Year to you, and thank you so much for supporting us on that level, man. That's really generous of you. Thank you, Joe. All right. Brandon Anderson writes, Happy New Year's. Happy New Year to you as well. Wanted to write in and say thank you for an amazing 2025. I set out a goal a year ago to watch a new movie every day of 2025. There is a second part. Successfully wrapped up with the goal yesterday. That is crazy. And accomplished it. Thanks to many suggestions from the show, I watched 632 hours worth of movies and 75 of were in theaters, thanks to AMC and Cinemark Pass. Dude, listen, the movie business is my business. It's what I do. And I don't think I've ever watched a movie a day. I would never have the time for that. That is awesome. That is an accomplishment, sir. And even just 75 in theaters is huge. And again, that really highlights how great these new movie memberships are. Like, you know, I'm very critical of the theater industry right now. I love the theater industry, but I'm very critical of it right now, particularly things like AMC. But, you know, credit where credit's due, AMC A-List is the best. AMC A-List is amazing. Regal Unlimited's really good. Cinemark's got a good plan. You know, I really love this era where we have these plans, and I'm glad you're taking advantage of them, dude. All right. Next up, we got King Daddy Goat, who writes in, people dressed up in Scoops Ahoy uniforms last night and cheered during the Stranger Things finale. The experience is something I won't forget. Happy New Year's. You know, that is the one reason I really wanted to go see this in theaters, is to be with just a huge crowd of Stranger Things fans and experience it all together. That's the magic of the movie theaters, man. Unfortunately, it was New Year's Eve, and we have plans, and we have people that we need to spend time with, and so we didn't do it. I watched it later in the evening, but man, I'm jealous that you had that experience. I wish I had done that too. That sounds like a lot of fun, man. All right. Next up, we've got Wayne, and Wayne writes, hey, John, would Knives Out 3 have made your top 10 if you watched it in cinemas? I'll say at the very least, it would have made my honorable mention. At the very, very least, it would have made my honorable mentions, because let me just pull up what my 10 were again. So my number 10 was Hamnet. I'm not sure it would have beat out Hamnet. But in my honorable mentions list with Frankenstein, Sentimental Value, Companion, Ballerina, How to Train Your Dragon, Final Destination Bloodlines, I think it would have made, yes, I can say for sure that it would have made my honorable mentions, but I don't think it would have cracked my top 5 or my top 10, because again, Hamnet was my number 10, and I don't think I would have put it above Hamnet. At least I wouldn't have, but I really, really liked Wake Up Dead Man. I thought it was really good. All right. Next up. Thanks for that, Wayne. Brandon Anderson writes, the best day of all was getting to watch The Long Walk in Denver with you. That was one of the places I watched The Long Walk with you at the movie meetup that myself and wife got to watch with you. Thank you. You know, as I look back at 2025, one of my favorite things that we did all year was the movie meetups. That, man, I tell you, that was just one of the, I think we did like 14 or 15 of them this year. We did movie meetups just in the last like 4 months. I think we did movie meetups in San Diego, Los Angeles, obviously, Salt Lake City, Denver, Albuquerque, Las Vegas, Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Indiana, Chicago, Hamilton. What were some of the Dallas, Orlando, Austin, Texas, Kansas City. Oh God, we did a bunch. I'm going to say 13, 14, 15 of them. We did. And it was such an amazing experience for me. Cause, you know, I said when we started this whole thing, I said, you know, it'll be so cool if we can get 2, 3, or 4 people show up to these movie meetups and we'll watch a movie together and then talk about it a little bit afterwards. And like, I mean, constantly like 60 people, 100 people. I think we had well over 200 people at one of them. It would like we were selling out movie theaters. Movie theaters were like jumping on board and putting up things on their screens about the John Campea movie meetup. And guys, for this little absolute nobody, with this little irrelevant YouTube channel, and I'm an absolute nobody. I am nothing in this space. For me to go around the country and experience that was just such a wonderful experience. And all of you guys were just so great and so fantastic. And it truly was one of my absolute favorite things of 2025. So thank you to everybody who was part of that. And thank you for reminding me of that meetup in Denver. Denver was great. All right. Next up, Twilight Boy, writes, pardon me, writes in, all I want to know about Doomsday is this. Do the Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four actually have meaningful roles, or are they sidelined based on what you heard? I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer any specific questions about Doomsday. Here's what I will do. I need to take some time to work out. I'm going to give one detail away about Avengers Doomsday. I'm going to give away one detail, but I need some time to figure out what the right detail is. It's got to be something that is very clearly something I didn't just guess, while at the same time, very clearly not anything that gives too much away or will take away the experience of something for somebody. So I need some time to think about it, and I will give away one. But I will say this. There's a couple of reports going around about things that are going to be in Avengers Doomsday right now. And a number of them are totally wrong. But one or two of them are absolutely right. And again, I know that's very vague. So I just need some time to think about one detail I can give about Avengers Doomsday. That number one is clearly something that I wouldn't just guess. But number two isn't something that gives anything too significant away. So give me a few days to think about that. All right. Well, here's the thing. Somebody's asking, if it didn't ruin it for you or Rob, why the hesitancy to ruin it for others? Because just because it didn't ruin it for me doesn't mean somebody else is the same as me. You know, and listen, dude, it is still fresh in my memory when I posted those Spider-Man pictures that got sent to me. I mean, and guys, you have no idea how much of that shit I get sent all the time. But like when I got sent those Spider-Man pictures and I posted the one picture that I thought was fake, and here's the funny thing about that Spider-Man experience. Like, obviously I thought it was fake. And so I posted it. I didn't even make a video. Like if I wanted to profit from it, I would have made a video about it. I wouldn't have posted it just on Twitter. I would have made a video about it. Right. But no, I thought it was fake. I posted it. I found out 5 minutes after I posted that it was real and I took it down. But one of the things that I learned from that, and what was really crazy there too, is that many outlets were reporting a year before the movie came out that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in it. Like there were many outlets that reported that and nobody got mad. But the moment I posted that picture, and I get it, had I realized it was real, I wouldn't have posted it. But some people got really mad, right? Like if I had never seen the picture before and then somebody just kind of randomly showed it to me, it wouldn't have bothered me. But other people aren't necessarily like me. Right? There are many people who are not going to want to know any details going to Doomsday. And so I got to be careful about how much information I put out just because I want to protect people who don't want to know anything if they don't want to know anything. So that's why I got to think about it a little bit about, again, a detail that is clearly not something that I would have guessed. So you know for sure that I know everything about the movie, but at the same time, it's not something that gives anything too much away. Anyway. All right. Next up, we've got Ian McAllister, who sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate that, dude. who writes, where are we? There we are. Doomsday will come out at least a few months after you retire. What? No, what? I did not say I'm retiring in 2026. Hold on a second. Doomsday will come out at least a few months after you retire. What will that era look like? Will you still do out of theater reactions for Doomsday, open spoiler discussions, reaction discussing any trailer script? No. Look. What I made very clear at the beginning of the year was that coming into 2025, my plan was to retire sometime between Superman coming out and the end of 2025. That had been my plan for well over about a year and a half. But two major things happened, as I expressed very clearly at the beginning of the year. Thing number one was that I got offered and signed a very lucrative new sponsorship deal. Not with any one sponsor, but rather with an agency who signed me for a particular amount of money that would then feed me sponsors and all this kind of stuff. And it was a very lucrative deal and one I needed to take. But I wouldn't have taken it unless the second thing happened, which was I found the Nuvo van. Because this van allows me to do the thing I've wanted to retire to do, which is to travel around. And the van is great because it allows me to travel and do the show from the van at the same time. And that changed things. So what I said at the beginning of the year is these two things has allowed me to delay my retirement. Now, listen, make no mistake. I'm still going to retire early. I'm not still going to be doing this in 2028. But I'm not, and who knows, maybe there's a chance. No, there's no chance I retire before the end of 2026. I might retire right after the end of 2026, but I'm not going to be doing this for another 5 years, but I have postponed my retirement, just so you know. All right. Thanks for asking, Ian. Appreciate that. Curtis Lopez writes, my top 10 2025 movies: 10, Rental Family; 9, Is This Thing On; 8, K-Pop Demon Hunters; 7, Superman; 6, Wake Up Dead Man; 5, Marty Supreme; 4, Weapons; 3, Frankenstein; 2, One Battle After Another; and 1, Sinners. You know, it's funny how many people I hear from where the 1 and 2, sometimes in different order, is either Sinners or One Battle After Another. Like, I would say the majority of the people who send me their lists end up having Sinners and One Battle After Another in the number 1 and number 2 spots. I do as well. I have One Battle After Another in number 2, and I have Sinners as my number 1 film of the year. Thanks for that, Curtis. Unknown writes, thanks to Stranger Things, I want to get into D&D. Any advice on where to start and how to be a part of a campaign? I love this question. All right, so best thing to do is just the easiest thing is to just look up some videos on YouTube, getting started in D&D. That's all you got to do. Getting started in Dungeons and Dragons. If you don't want to do that, go to your local bookstore or go on Amazon, one of the two, and just order the Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook. And it will walk you through how to do it. Finding campaign, best thing to do is to get some other like-minded friends together. But if not, just do a Google search. Look for joining online campaigns and stuff like that, because there are groups of people you can join and do it virtually, stuff like that. But I would say go to a local game shop, ask around about it, see if you got friends that want to do one yourselves. That's always the best way. But the first step is look up some videos or just go and buy the Player's Handbook. And I think that's your best start into it. All right. Next up, Jai CSC writes, I like the Stranger Things finale. I thought it was really good. It was paced well to me. I liked the resolutions, and overall it was a solid end to it. Again, I agree with all of that for the first half of it. I thought the first half was solid. Not the best, didn't totally nail it, but I thought it was totally adequate. I thought it was good. I liked it. That whole second part just lost me though, until they got to them playing Dungeons and Dragons again. That again, I really just think a simple edit. They kill Vecna 18 months later, and it's right to them playing downstairs. That should have been it. They should have cut that other 20, 30, 40, 45, however many minutes it was out of it entirely. And I would have personally been much happier with it, but I'm glad it worked for you, Jai. All right. Andrew writes, the new Highlander remake is to start filming this year. Could you talk about your love for the first movie and your hopes and expectations for the remake? Well, I mean, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but yes, the original Highlander film is the oddest movie that's in my top 10 favorite all-time films. And what I mean by that is, when I go down my list of my favorite top 10 films, everybody goes, oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. Even if it's not on their own list, but it's like, yeah. But when I get to Highlander, that's the one they go, Highlander? Really? Yeah. I've always loved it. The mythology building, the characters, what you can do with that kind of a story, I just think is great. And I've been wanting them to revisit it for many years. And I'm really excited that they're finally doing it. And I'm especially excited that they're doing it with my boy, Henry. That's what I'm really excited about. All right. Next up, we got John Darius, who writes, Stranger Things finale was great. I'm grateful they didn't try to be overly shocking and different for the sake of it. They stuck with the plan and delivered a beautiful close. As a fan, I'm satisfied. You know what? You raise a good point. The finale, let me just stick to the first half, the first hour. The finale stuck to the formula. It stuck to what was true to Stranger Things. That was truly a Stranger Things finish. Now, again, I won't litigate the whole second hour like I have before. But yeah, that first thing right up from the beginning of the episode to the chopping off of Vecna's head, that was very Stranger Things. It was very consistent to Stranger Things. And I think if you're a big fan of Stranger Things, I think that should have left you fairly satisfied. I know I liked it. I didn't think it was great, all capital letters, but I thought it was good and I liked it. And then there was the second half, which I totally hated. And then the actual ending, which I thought was one of the most beautiful things I've seen on television in a while. All right. Thanks for that, John. Steven writes, apparently a bunch of parents are buying their kids blue venomous vipers because of Zootopia 2. Not smart. Oh, listen, every time there's a hit movie, there's always a story of somebody doing something really stupid because it was done in a movie. I can't believe that's really true. Like maybe, yeah, 2 or 3 parents, but buying your kids poisonous snakes. First of all, where do you even legally buy poisonous snakes? I mean, I'm not being facetious when I ask that. I have no idea. I'm just wondering. That seems really odd. Anyway, Animesh writes, 1 of 2. Happy New Year, John and crew. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to you as well. Most moviegoers don't visit theaters monthly anymore, more like once every 3 to 4 months. With so many franchise films competing for those limited visits, are they pulling audiences away from other movies? If so, does this force filmmakers to overspend on marketing or skip theaters altogether and go directly to streaming? No, I think you're reversing cause and effect there. I don't think people sit down and go, I'm going to go to 4 movies a year, 1 every 3 months. And, oh, this movie looks good, but I can't go because I already saw a movie 2 weeks ago and I can't break my limit of 4. I don't think that's what it is. I think the reason you see people going to movies less is because there's less that is appealing to them. Like if somebody, let's just use just for the sake of the point, let's just look at a big example. Doomsday. The coming Doomsday, where Dune 3 and Doomsday are both coming out. If Dune 3 is really appealing to somebody, and Doomsday is also really appealing to that somebody, they're going to go see both. Not necessarily on the same day, but they're going to go see both. At the same time, if somebody hasn't gone to the movies in a couple of months, and then they think, yeah, I'm kind of in the mood to go to a movie, and they look to see what's playing, and nothing that's playing is really appealing to them, they're not going to go just for the sake of going. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think you just have cause and effect mixed up there. At least that's the way I see it. I could be wrong, but that's just kind of my perspective on it. All right, thanks for the question, man. That's a good one. All right. Next up, John Darius writes, what new franchise, movie, or TV do you think could be the next big wave? I don't know. I believe it can absolutely be the MCU X-Men. Well, that's not really new. Given they are casting fairly young actors to grow with the new audience thoughts. Well, listen, them casting younger actors is not going to make it a big new franchise. It just means they're preparing for it to be a big franchise, right? And you can't call that a new franchise. It's the MCU. Like, yes, it's X-Men, but it's still the MCU. Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah, but it's still the MCU. The Eternals, yeah, but it's still the MCU, right? So this isn't a new franchise. This is just like over the past 6 years, we've had new characters entering in. This is just granted on a larger scale, but it's just the next new phase of new characters coming in. It's still just the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As far as a truly new thing, I mean, I don't know. We have to wait and see. Got to wait and see to see what comes along. I really can't pitch that. But I wouldn't classify the X-Men coming in as some brand new franchise. It's not. It's still the MCU. And we already know it's got a track record of success, and we'll see what happens after the 2 Avengers movies. All right. Thanks for that, John. Next up, Keaton Haybeck writes, settle a debate. The best lightsaber duels are the ones where they are a physical extension of the character's emotional state. I'll go one step further. I think that's true not just of lightsaber duels, but of all combat scenes. There's a saying, if you guys have watched me for a long period of time, there's a saying I've used a lot over the years, which is this: action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. Action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. A great example of that is most of the Transformers movies. Like, there's a lot of Transformers movies that have a lot of action, but they're crap. It's like, well, why is this happening? Oh, because he hates him. Okay, but what's going on here? So the greatest example of this is Star Wars Return of the Jedi. The best of the Star Wars movies, in my opinion. In that, there's this lightsaber fight between Luke and Vader in the Emperor's throne room as the Battle of Endor is going on. From a choreography point of view, it's not the best lightsaber fight. It's good, but from a purely choreography point of view, that's not the best lightsaber fight. But it is absolutely the best lightsaber fight overall, because emotion is in that duel. Story is being told in that duel. It has functional narrative purpose that had been built up for years to that moment, and revelation is happening through the fight that changes the outcome of the fight. Because, the fight's going one way and it's happening one way, and Luke's got, Vader's got kind of the upper hand, and then all of a sudden, sister, so, if you will not turn, perhaps she will. No. And then it turns the tide of the battle. Story dictates the action. And so it is true, not just in Star Wars. You know what another great example of that is? Top Gun Maverick. Top Gun Maverick. Because you get to the final big action sequence in Top Gun Maverick. It's not just, hey guys, we're the good guys and they're the bad guys. Let's jump in our plane and go blow up the bad guys. Yay! And it's just visual noise. But rather, you got Maverick and Rooster, Goose's son. Well, why did you do that? I just saved you. No, I saved you. And that's all happening. Like, story is unfolding as this action is happening. When that happens, action is elevated. And so, yes, I agree with your basic statement, but it's not just the best lightsaber duels are when they're the physical extensions of characters' emotional states or their connection to narrative and story. But I'd suggest and submit to you that that's true of every kind of action sequence in any movie or television series. Action without narrative purpose is just visual noise. But when you add good doses of storytelling and you connect it to the character's emotions, it elevates it greatly. Anyway, Thanks for asking the question, man. Jai CSC writes, my top 5 2025 movies in no order: Life of Chuck, One Battle After Another, Sinners, Weapons, and Superman. Honorable mentions: Drop. I love the love that Drop is getting here today. I really like that little movie. And of course, Wake Up Dead Man. Thank you, Jai, for sharing your list with us, dude. All right, next up, Red Boy 27 writes, Happy New Year's, John. Happy New Year to you as well. I saw a Michael trailer at the theater recently, and people were legit crying, and kids were dancing really? Like I've never seen that before for a biopic. This movie is going to be huge. Listen, people, dare I say, people guffawed at me. Guffawed, I say, when I said that Michael is a $1 billion film. And I said this before the first trailer came out. I said, listen, it's Michael Jackson, guys. If Bohemian Rhapsody just about made $1 billion, listen, guys, it's Michael Jackson. It's the king of pop. It's the biggest pop star in history. Who has a very interesting background, depending on what it is you believe. And yeah, man, listen, I'm telling you, Michael is going to be huge. I will say it will be a $1 billion film. Now, look, of course, we might go see the movie and it totally sucks, and the movie word gets out that it sucks and it kills the box office. That could happen. But it's Antoine Fuqua directing it, so I doubt that'll happen. This is going to be a $1 billion film, man. Just mark my words. This is absolutely going to be a $1 billion film. At least. All right. Thanks for that, Red Boy. Michael French writes, who does the graphics like the one you showed talking about Zootopia 2's box office? It looks okay's vet professional. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. So anyway, you're talking about the infographics. I make them. Now, the way I make them is through a process. I don't have great artistic ability. I have very good technical proficiency, but I don't have a lot of artistic capability. So the way I make the, let me see if there's a couple of examples here I can pull up of this stuff. Yeah. So the way I make these infographics, and I'll just pull a couple up here. Oh, that's not the one I wanted to bring up. This is the one I wanted to bring up. Okay, so there was this one that we used today, and then there's this one we used today. So basically that we used yesterday, basically what I do is it's a combination I use, because I'm not that artistically gifted. The infographics are a mixture of Photoshop and Nano Banana, which is generative AI. So what I do is I pull together graphics I want to do. I think about what's the concept that I want. And then I pull together visual elements. Like, for example, I'll just give an example of this one here. Let me bring this up. Oops, that's not the one. Give me a second here. That's the wrong graphic. Okay. Here's how I made this particular infographic. I knew exactly what it was. I had the image in my head, but I'm not an artist. So I pulled together some graphic images. Like, I know what I wanted. I wanted to show the decline of the stock prices of AMC. So I pulled together like AMC logos, film reels, things like I've come up with the text that I want to have and stuff like that. Then what I do is I take a number of those things, feed them into Nano Banana, and I write out exactly what it is I want. Take these images. What I want is a declining stock chart showing losses representing this data set. January 2023, $33.97 million, or $33.97 stock price. January 2024, $5. So I pull the data together and I say, I want an infographic that displays this set of data, utilize these images I have, and then utilize this image to represent a declining stock ticker. And then I say, go ahead and put it together. And then Nano Banana assembles that into an infographic. It's never what I want at first. So then I'll change some of the graphics. I'll put in some new inputs, some new directions, and say, now do this, change this, blah, blah, blah. Now, once it creates something that looks roughly like what I want the infographic to look like, then I take that into Photoshop, which is where I have more skill in. So then I take that into Photoshop, and then I make any of the last like little things that I want. So in this example, see right beside the AMC logo in the top left, where it says January 2023, and then just to the right of it, you see that red arrow pointing down. I just kind of felt like, oh, there's some other pointing down arrows I want to add in. So I made a red arrow, tapered it off at the end and put one in there, and then one just to the right of January 2024. Then I just made the AMC Theater Stock Crash title. That's at the top there. I dropped that in Photoshop. Then I found this thing where you can like lay over that makes it look like your text is cracking. So then I put that in. So it's kind of a mix of how I put some of these infographics. It's not what I use to make the thumbnails. Like Ray makes most of our segment thumbnails, but yeah, to make the infographics, it starts with coming up with my idea, assembling graphic elements or making some graphic elements that I want to go into it, coming up with a full description of what I want it to be, feeding that into Nano Banana. It kind of assembles what it thinks I want. I tell it to make some changes. I go through a few revisions. Then once it's close to what I want, I take that graphic, then bring that into Photoshop, and I just put together whatever final touches I need in Photoshop. And then I have my infographic. I love infographics. I really love infographics. Because you guys know, if you watched my show for any period of time, I love data. I love numbers. I love statistics. I love stats, because movies are subjective, completely subjective. It's art, man. It's totally subjective. There's no absolute right and absolute wrong. So when we can get into areas of discussion around movies that deal with actual data and numbers and statistics, maybe that's the sports fan in me. It's probably the sports fan. It's probably the ESPN guy in me. But I really love infographics to lay out data. And the one thing I've come to really like using AI for is probably the most useless thing, but is just to make my infographics. So for me, it's a combination of finding images I want, feeding it into Nano Banana, describing what I want. It puts together a version of it. I take that, bring it into Photoshop, fine tune it in there, and then I get my my infographic. Oh, and then of course, first of all, pulling together all my data. That's the first and most important thing. But that's how I do it. I hope you find that. I hope you find that helpful. All right. Let's keep going here. Next up, we've got Connell writes, one of three. The finale made me so emotional. I was 12 years old. Wow. I was 12 years old when the show started. I'm now 21. The show has been there for me all of my teen years and into early adulthood. Now that it's over, I realize how I have matured over that time with these characters. This show marks the end of my childhood in a way. That's beautiful, man. P.S. Happy New Year. And Happy New Year to you too, man. I mean, and that's, we haven't even taken that into consideration. Like for a lot of people, like yourself, because Stranger Things has been around for so long, for a lot of people, it represents a good chunk of their lives. They have been with these characters for a good chunk of their lives. And even though I started watching Stranger Things as an adult, even I am like, that last little button man, when they're all just sitting around the table playing Dungeons and Dragons one more time, it was just so beautiful and perfect. And then again, the next generation comes down, they start playing even more perfect. John, you can't be more perfect. If something is perfect, it's perfect. I understand. But I'm going to say more perfect anyway. It was really beautiful. And like for somebody like you that started watching it so young and now you're literally an adult and this has been a part of you during that whole journey, I can only imagine how gratifying that must be. Thanks for sharing that, dude. That's really cool. All right. Next up, Steven C20 writes, "Hey, John, just how you don't love when MCU would do fake deaths. I have a similar problem with Stranger Things doing that. Steve, Max, 11, etc. Yeah, I get it. I get it. When did they think Steve died? When did they think Steve died? And I mean, wasn't Max always didn't they always know she was just in a, oh, well, okay, wait, somebody's saying it was falling off the tower. That's not a fake death. That's an almost died. Steve falling off the thing was not a fake death. If Steve fell off the tower and landed on the ground and they all went down to the ground and go, oh no, Steve's dead. And he's like, and they're like, oh no, he died. Oh no. And then they traveled back up into the upside down and went on to the abyss, and an hour passes and they're fighting Vecna. And then all of a sudden, a not dead Steve jumps in and, you know, starts to help battle him too, because he didn't actually die. Okay, that's a fake death. But a guy going, oh, and then another guy catching him. That's not a fake death. That's a almost died, but they didn't show him dying. And Max, I would also say, wasn't really a fake death. I would say that. I'd say through 10 years, 5 seasons, all that kind of stuff. They did it with Hopper, you know, because at the end of the one season, we thought Hopper might have been dead. And then they did the little post-credit Russian thing. Elle, maybe, but I think that was really the only time they did that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the only time they did that. I'm again, it's been a long time. It's been many years. Maybe I'm forgetting about one or two. But Max was not a fake death because they never thought she was dead. And Steve was like a, whoa, that wasn't anything. It was fine. He was okay. That wasn't a fake death either. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Steven. Next up, Gurumi writes, Happy New Year, John. Happy New Year to you as well. What about James Cameron movies that makes them open relatively low but have such long legs? Well, I mean, it's not like that happens to all of his movies. It's happened to Avatar, obviously. And it also happened with Titanic. Because I can't remember just how big Titanic's... Let me look it up. Titanic. Can't remember how big it opened, but I don't think it had a huge opening. Yeah, Titanic, guys. Titanic. What is it? The number 4 biggest film of all time? Number 4, I think. Had a $28 million opening. By any standards, would have looked at it and said, oh, flop. Flop. Right? And yet now it then went on to make over $2.2 billion. But his other ones aren't necessarily like that. But, you know, Avatar, Titanic, you know, it's a good question. I don't know. I don't know why the 3 Avatar films all open modestly. I'm not going to say low. $88 million opening weekend is nothing to sneeze at, but I'll call them modest, right? The original Avatar, 70 something million opening. Avatar 2, like 130 something million opening. Avatar 3, an $88 million opening. For huge blockbusters, those are modest. They're modest openings. What it is about that opening, I don't know. Now, what gives them legs is appeal. Movies are experiential events. Movies are made and meant to make us feel something. And if you can do that, if you can make the audience feel, people will come back. And people will tell other people about it, and people will recommend your movie. If I walk out of your movie and you gave me an experience and you made me feel, whether that experience and feeling is laughter or excitement or fear or dread or apprehension or love or joy or whatever it is. If your movie makes the audiences feel, that goes a long way. And so why does Avatar open so modestly? I have no idea. But why does it have a great legs like it does? Because his movies make audiences feel. And you simply can't deny that because they are the biggest movies of all time. People just keep going back again and again and again, and they go back because it makes them feel. So why they open low or modestly? Not sure. Why they have legs? Because it makes them feel. All right. Next up. That's a great question, E. Groomy. By the way, excellent question. Disney Gifts by Bryce writes, got to see the finale in theaters last night. That's kind of cool. I wish I could have done that. Loved it. 5 of the 8 shows were completely sold out. Couldn't believe it. It's usually just me. And you know what? I bet anything. I don't know this is a fact. I'm just saying I would bet this. That if you polled people who actually went to go see it in theater and watched it in a crowd with other people, I bet the general feeling of those people who saw the finale in theaters was probably a higher response than people to watch it at home, which is one of the reasons why going to the movie theaters is just better. You have a better time because you're with fellow fans. People are laughing and cheering and oohing and awing all together. It heightens the experience, which is why movie theaters I don't care how good you think your little setup at home is. Movie theaters, 1,000 times out of 1,000 is always the better movie watching experience. 100% it is. And I'm kind of jealous of you guys. You got to have that experience. All right. And our last question, again, like I told you about an hour ago, we turned off the super chats a long time ago. Our last question comes to us from Malachite Hawk, who writes, why do you think SpongeBob movies don't do that well for a massive IP? Not surprised by the new one, but the first one made 140 million and the second 320. Simpsons 500 million. I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know why SpongeBob movies make any money. We all of us have that something that everybody seems to like that we don't get why people like it. For me, one of those things is SpongeBob. I've never understood the appeal of SpongeBob. Not that there's anything wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. Don't misinterpret me, but I've never understood the appeal of SpongeBob. But yeah, SpongeBob is another great example of the erroneous way a lot of people think that if something's a big recognizable IP, that automatically means it's going to do great as a movie. And time again, we found that that's not necessarily true at all. For me, and I can only speak for myself in a subjective way, there is simply nothing appealing about going to see a SpongeBob movie. There's just nothing appealing about it. So I am not surprised. And now, granted, I will say this. Let me pull up the newest one here. The not the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. What is it? The new one. The SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants. I thought it would make a little bit more than 15 million opening weekend. And right now, overall, worldwide, it's made $64 million. I thought it would make a little bit more than that, but I'm not surprised it's not making a bunch of money. I've just never seen the appeal of it. But again, that is just me, and that's not taking anything away from anybody who does enjoy those properties or does find enjoyment in them. That's awesome. But I'm only speaking for myself. I've just never understood anybody liking them. All right, guys. I thought I was going to do today's show for like 1 hour. Just as a New Year's Day, we weren't even going to do a show at all today, but just a little New Year's Day, one special 1 hour. And here we've gone almost the full 2 hours. Anyway, guys, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me here today for this first show of the year of the John Campea Show here in January 1st of 2026. Thank you so much to everybody who decided to come by and get out of bed. Many of you probably still hungover and join us for the show today. Big appreciation to all of you. Big thank you to all you guys who sent in super chats. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for now. Hey, me and Rob will both be doing more of a regular show tomorrow. I hope you guys will come back and join us for then. And until that time, my name's John Campea. Bye-bye.